All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Burning the Boats with the OMG Show. It's me, Oscar Garcia, and today I have the pleasure of having Robert Blacklidge. And I'm just excited for today's conversation. Robert, I've heard so much about you, so thank you for being on today's episode of Burning the Boats. I'm excited to get on this journey with you. If you can, real quick, just tell the people a quick two-minute summary of who you are, what you're about, and what they have forward to hearing.
Sure, absolutely. I really thank you so much for having me on. It's a true pleasure for me. Like most people, I enjoy sharing my story. Mine's kind of unique. I have had a wide variety of opportunities in my life and feel very blessed for that. But at the same time, I've been a risk taker for a long time. So those come with their ups and downs, just like other entrepreneurs in their journey. A long, long time ago, I started off as a child selling candy on the bus, had this entrepreneurial mindset, and then turned old enough to get a job and went right into the workforce. All this time I just felt empty. I was in the retail. I joined the military for several years, trying to serve my country and find this thing that I had felt was missing from my life, this empty hole that wasn't fulfilling me. And like most people, I was pursuing money. So I had a very money-driven mindset at the time. And ended up, when I got out of the military, I was able to go get a few degrees. I ended up with a master's in entrepreneurial leadership. While I was doing that, I also started 3 companies and bought 2. So before I turned 30, I ended up having these businesses. And then that kind of was really the start of my quote-unquote entrepreneur journey. So it's a lot of what we'll be talking about is the ups and downs, the failures. At this point, I've had 9 companies, and I'm actually giving a lot back, working in Lakeland, Florida, to help other entrepreneurs avoid a lot of the mistakes that I have made and gain from the knowledge and wisdom I've been able to be a part of throughout the years.
I love it. And you know what? How I know it's going to be a good conversation? It's because you're so humble about it. Like, you had, what was it? I think a total of 5 companies before the time you were 30, and so it's and you're just kind of like, yeah, I'm just here to give back and give so much value. And that's amazing, because I meet so many people on both sides of the spectrum where like they're afraid to just get started with one business, right? And then you have some that are like the serial entrepreneurs that have 15, 20 under their belts, and they kind of just for them it's kind of cookie cutter at this point. But let's focus more on you, because you said 2 things that kind of stood out to me, which were, number one was you had this big hole and you were kind of trying to fill it with money, right? And then the other thing was, I guess there was a switch when now you're kind of more about giving value. So let's talk about the hole and the money aspect first. And, was that the main driver for you when you were first starting out, even way back when you were selling candy in the bus?
Yeah, as far as I can remember, right, money is how we set value in this country, and we definitely subscribe to that contract. And it's kind of sad from the point of view that I have now, because when you weigh somebody by what they do and not who they are, it's destructive to the entire culture that we live in, because you're not really valuing them as an individual.
Right. You're valuing them more as
Right. I mean, it's what can I get from you? What can you give me? And that's not a relationship. That's a contract, right? That's business. That's an exchange of value, not a relationship that's based on what we have in common. And, we might have different political differences, but we both believe in the same things. And that ultimately is what matters, the impact we want to have in the world and how we want to be remembered.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's see, you went to school, then you decided to join the Air Force, right?
I did horrific at the first time I went to school. I had a lot of fun, but it didn't work out for me.
Yeah.
I ended up being in the service industries, did some HVAC, went into retail pretty heavily. I'd already done a lot, and then got married in 2007.
Okay.
My wife went to grad school in Kentucky, so we moved. I put everything I owned into a Mazda Miata, right? So not a very big car.
Yeah.
But I was young. Most of the stuff was just clothing
Yeah.
shoved into the trunk of this thing,
Yeah.
and the TV that I have no idea how I managed to fit in there,
In a Miata.
and, and a Mazda Miata with two people in it. So I didn't even
Yeah.
have a passenger seat to fill up.
Wow.
And we drove, we had our honeymoon, and she started school.
Wow.
I went to retail, into the retail industry. I wasn't really fulfilled. I was always looking for basically how I was going to pay the bills, not really how I was going to engage in the world.
Yeah.
And everything I did was very transactional at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where I ended up going to the military, was looking for that core way to give back. I'm an Eagle Scout. My grandfathers, both sides, were in the military, and it always been on my mind as something that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And the opportunity presented itself. I went into the recruiter's office in less than 30 days. I was on a bus to basic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
this was back in 09, right after 9/11.
Yeah.
And it was, they were saying a year, right, to get into the military.
Right.
I wasn't expecting to turn around and go right on a bus. I mean, it's kind of scary. Your whole life's being upended. You're
Right.
being sent off to potentially, when you sign up for the military, you put your hand on the Bible and say, I'll give my life for this country.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
pretty big commitment. And that was one of those experiences that I don't regret, but I wouldn't go back into the military, even if they offer me the chance to.
Yeah.
Because it's a selflessness, but it's also a completely different mindset. They tear you down, put you into a very structured routine. The best way I can explain it is that in the military, no matter how you treat the other person, you're both going to work to achieve the goal that you need to achieve, no matter what, even if it means giving your life. In society in general, it's, I have to like you, I have to want to be your friend, and then that's how we work together. Because as soon as you rub me the wrong way, I can walk away. I don't have to be there anymore. And a lot of the military doesn't retrain you to be a civilian after they leave you. So I went through kind of this transitional period. I went back into retail, really kind of figuring out what I wanted to be, and kind of chasing that money trail.
Yeah.
And then ultimately where that leaded me to was buying. See, I had a $500,000 restaurant business before I was 30.
Wow.
I had 14 employees across 2 different locations. I ran the marketing for the entire region, and I was like, yes, this is it. I'm working 80 hours a week and making no money. It's incredible. Right? It's all gross. It's all in
yeah, absolutely.
And I was paying off as much debt as I could because we took out a loan to do it. And but I felt something for it, right? It was cool. I was making an impact. I had people under me, but it was still at the core a pursuit of financial gain.
Yeah.
And I ended up losing that $500,000 restaurant business.
Okay. Can
you imagine spending a year of your life working your ass off, calling in all your favors from all your friends, having them work with you, and then losing it all like that?
If you don't mind me asking, what caused you to lose the business? Let's dive into that for a little bit.
It was a bad business partner, right? So this was very early in my career as an entrepreneur on that scale, and I had a 50-50 partner. When you go into business, you need an operating agreement that clearly defines what each of you are going to be responsible for, so there's no resentment. And then you need an agreement that clearly outlines how you exit that relationship, right? What do they call? They call it something in marriage, right?
I'm not married, so I wouldn't know, but I'm looking to you.
Prenup.
The expert.
You get a prenup, right? Yes, absolutely. That's the word. So I didn't have a prenup. The relationship degraded over time. I was working a ton of energy putting into this, and he wasn't. And at the end of it, he wanted out, and instead of working with me to do that, he just took all the money in the bank, paid off as much business debt as he could, and with no money, you don't have a business. So we shut the doors. Unfortunately, I had no control over it because it was business debt. There was no recourse, and he had 50%, so there was no way to be like, yeah, no, I have controlling shares, and we didn't have an operating agreement, so I couldn't even be like, here it says he can't do these things. It was a lot of very common mistakes that most entrepreneurs get into when they're getting started and they're looking for partners, that can easily be avoided with investing in some very simple, straightforward operating agreements and a prenup kind of style.
Gotcha. Okay. How did you fall into the restaurant business? Did you just build it from scratch, or was it something you took over? Did someone offer it to you? How did that play out?
Yeah. So while I was going through my MBA, they taught us how to look at the financials and then analyze the business and how effective and it
Mm,
was in making money. And so we looked at 20 different businesses. I ran all their financials, looked at all their numbers, did the market analysis on what they were doing.
yeah.
And we found one that was just a ridiculously good deal. The owner needed to retire due to medical issues, and so was
Yeah.
just looking out to get out from the remainder of the loan.
Mhm.
It was like $18,000, and we were doing 125 a year gross,
Whoa.
right? Crazy,
Yeah.
crazy deal.
Yeah.
We got into that, and then it was a franchise. There was another location that was coming up for sale,
Hmm.
and we were greedy, so we got in over our heads. Had to
Hmm.
work way too much to get them both. They were both owner operated locations.
Okay.
You can't be in two places at once, so
Yeah.
we had to hire, train, and develop managers,
Mm.
retrain a whole staff to work on the processes, and really become an effective machine working
And
to deliver
and
a
you're doing
product.
this without any restaurant experience before. Just-
My background was like working at Target in the
Okay.
food
So
service.
so you're learning and teaching at the same time, right?
100%. No
Okay.
idea what I'm doing.
Okay.
Completely like
I
just
love it.
leveraging everything I had in the military and everything I could pull from in my, like, okay, we can't, it has to be at this temperature kind of stuff, right? Because food
Yeah.
safety and,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's process doesn't work. So maybe we should try doing it a different way. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
completely from
And
almost no experience.
did your business partner have a military background like yourself, or no?
He did,
Okay.
but he didn't really own it, which is
Mm,
interesting. And I don't know whether the story there is. So that's kind of what we bonded on. Was we both
yeah.
wanted to do business. We both had military background,
Okay.
but he was making a ton of money on with his full time job, and so he
Mm,
kind of came into it with the idea like, hey, I'm going to be a business owner. That's cool.
yeah.
Without the understanding of what it actually takes to be a business owner, right? At the end of
Right.
the day, the buck stops at you. You have to do everything in your
Absolutely.
power to make it happen.
Yeah.
Shoot, I went on vacation just a weekend to San Francisco, and my manager, one of my stores, called me up and was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm not coming in tomorrow. I'm like,
Oh.
I'm halfway across the country. Like, what are you doing? Like, how am I supposed to help? And so there's a lot of that goes into running a business, even when it's generating a lot of revenue, to maintain that activity and ensure that people are doing what they're supposed to.
Mhm.
It's a ton of work.
Yeah, it sounds like a ton of work, and it sounds like I know you said you were paying off debt, but you didn't have like that freedom giving money where did you or did you not? Because it sounds like you were doing like 80-hour work weeks, trying to juggle a lot of different hats at the same time. So was that restaurant business kind of like a nice cash flow for you, or was it just really more of like I think I'm getting by type of work?
We netted about 180,000 a year.
Okay,
So
all right,
gross, we were pulling about 500,000, and then we would take home 180. But a lot of that went to uh, paying off the debt that we got in from the business,
hmm
looking to do further growth and development. A lot of what we were doing was hoping to grow that to a much larger business, and so we were maximizing payroll. A lot
got
of that went into growing the business because we're early on.
right.
Neither one of us needed to generate revenue from this business, and so we were putting a lot of that capital back in the business. In a year we were able to stockpile like 60K
Yeah,
in the bank, so it was a good business. But at the end, if you don't when you a lot of it had to do with timing. So restaurant businesses kind of go up and down, and
yeah.
we were in our downswing at the beginning
Oh,
of it
come on.
when he took
Yeah,
all the cash out.
yeah,
So all the money we had to get through that time,
yeah.
basically we had no money and we were done.
And what's so crazy to me is that like you're getting your MBA, right? Or you were done with your MBA as this happened, and you decide to go into one of the most riskiest markets
Yeah.
as your first business, if you will. And it sounds like for 2 years you pretty much were doing really really great with it, until, you know, you had this disagreement with the business partner, you know?
Right. Yeah. And those are things completely out of your control, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have any control over what he did, which kind of sucks. In my future businesses, I definitely learned from that,
Yeah.
and made sure that that wasn't a possibility. But this one loss really changed my life pivotally, and is what set me on to a different path.
So let's talk about that change in mindset, because, you know, let's go back to, you know, I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure if you got a phone call or if you just checked the bank and all the money was gone, or what happened. But, you know, let's go back to that day of, wow, I just lost this restaurant, you know, business. What's my next move? What am I going to do? You know, I probably would have got into the fetal position and cried a little bit. But, you know what,
Yeah.
what was your mentality at the time, and how did you handle that, you know, for, you know, crisis management?
Yeah. So for me, I was incredibly depressed.
Uh-huh.
There is, when you're an entrepreneur, the business you create is your baby, right?
Mhm.
You put your life and soul into creating and bringing this new thing into the world, and uh, to lose it like that and have it ripped away from me was soul wrenching.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was literally standing in my driveway, just feeling um, the deepest, darkest soul in fighting with, the thoughts of suicide, not knowing what to do next.
Yeah.
And I'm staring there, looking at my red Fiat 500, small little car,
Yeah. Yeah.
right, like 6 feet across from the
Yep.
front to the back, with this deep desire to get away. And
Mm.
so I open it up. I pull all the seats out of it. I
Yeah.
put a bed, a dresser, and some fans,
Nice.
and I hit the road. I just drove and drove and drove until I hit the coast over in New Jersey.
Uh-huh.
Headed up the coast to Canada.
Wow. Okay.
And the night I got into Canada, I drove, I think, 22 hours. So,
You just drove.
yeah. In Canada, the roads are black asphalt.
Mm-hmm.
They're sides of the roads, tall pine trees reaching for the sky,
Mm-hmm.
and mountain ranges as far as you can see.
Yeah.
I drove until the road turned to dirt
Wow.
and stopped at the base of a mountain. I
Wow.
get out of my car. I'm like, I drove all this way. I'm not getting stopped by a mountain.
I'm gonna keep
I
climbing.
grab my bag, right? I grab my bag. I climb up the mountain through overgrown bushes and trees, and I come out to the other side.
Uh-huh.
And I walk down. There's a little strip of green grass, but it's overcast. It's black rock coastal, and
Mm-hmm.
the waves are just crashing onto it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I came all this way, drove all these miles.
Yeah.
I don't feel any different. What the hell did I just do, right? Like, where is the solution for my problem?
Yeah.
What is going on? And I like turn around, like just sitting in that darkness, breathing in the depression, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, get this. I'm gonna climb back up the mountain, get over to the top, and I come out the very top of the mountain. The trees opened up, and the ocean was outstretched in front of me. The sun was setting, and it lit the whole scene on fire.
Wow.
Bright, deep oranges and reds on the mountain ranges and in the ocean.
Wow.
And in that moment, I realized in life I had been pursuing money. With
Mm-hmm.
the pursuit of money, you can lose everything in an instant and be
Mm-hmm.
left with nothing. Or you can pursue passion. And so
Mm-hmm.
my passions were entrepreneurship and education,
Yeah.
and it set me on a path that changed my life forever. I
Mm-hmm.
was focused on meeting the needs of people, focused on how I could resolve a pain point that I had experienced, and every company was an evolution of trying to solve that main point, that main problem,
Yeah.
and meeting a need for the community. I've made more friends, lost more businesses, but
Mm-hmm.
gained more wisdom and knowledge than I ever thought possible.
Wow. So, moral of the story is take a drive. No.
There's a lot of cultures that believe in walkabouts.
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting you say that now, because like as you know, like you took a Miata, right? You packed it up and you drove. I'm sitting right now in a converted van, right? So I purchased a van, I converted it, and I'm driving all across the country with it. But it's similar how to many other entrepreneurs that I've spoken to, like they come to this moment where they, for one reason or another, they take this journey, this like existential journey, where something happens, they don't understand how to describe it, but yet they get a new perspective on how they view it. And most of the time that perspective comes back down to, it's not about the money, it's about something much more than that. And as soon as they understand that, it's like everything changes. And so for me, it leaves me wondering, like, do you feel that you can teach someone that don't follow the money, or do you feel like everyone needs to go through their own little story, if you will, to kind of understand that?
Yeah. So one of my favorite things to do is actually take people through this process that helps them recenter their mindset on what they care about, why
Mhm.
they exist in the world. Have you heard of Simon Sinek's Why?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So definitely watch that if you haven't seen it. It is a core piece of what I believe in and what drives me forward. But also it's a way that I communicate it, right? So people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Yep.
It's all about expressing the value of what you're trying to achieve.
Mm.
For you to figure out what you're doing and why you're doing it, there's a big difference in the way that you approach the world.
Mhm.
And so what I like to do is take people to some place they find beautiful. It's very important that they can connect with it on a deeper level, whether it's a sunset on a riverside or a mountain range or wherever
Right.
that place is for you. And then I have them practice something we did in the military called combat breathing. It's
Mm.
basically the breathing aspects of mindful meditation. You
Okay.
clear your mind, you center yourself, you bring yourself into the moment. And doing that in front of something really beautiful brings out a lot of the core emotions that you are as a human being.
Mhm.
And then I do the 5 whys. I ask them, why do you do what you do, right? And
Mhm.
I'll get a bunch of random things from them. But by the time I get to the fifth or sixth why, I've either made my way around back to the beginning or I latch onto something that's very emotional, right? It pulls out
Mhm.
the emotions, the core of what they are as a
Mhm.
person. And from there, you can build on top of what you do. A lot of times, the things that you do are because of a why, some way, somehow, back at the core. And I think that's what the walkabout does for you, right? It
Yeah.
clears out all the mud that gets in your way, that prevents you from seeing what's at the center, the core why of what you do as a person and as an individual. And
Mhm.
that, I think, is ultimately what drives every action of the what we're doing.
Yeah.
But not a lot of people can tell that story or feel connected to that piece of it. Once you make that connection, you are forever changed, but also you understand what drives you. And so you're able to make intelligent, intentional decisions moving forward.
Yeah, and it's a concept very similar to, I don't know what Tony Robbins calls it, but Eckhart Tolle, he wrote a book, I'm not sure if you read it, called The Power of Now, which is a book I highly recommend. But he talks about, like, pain is a great motivator, because most people want to run away from pain and head towards something where they're comfortable. But for example, if you're trying to kill like a smoking habit, you need to associate some type of deep emotional pain to the smoking habit in order to, implement some corrective behavior and go somewhere that you want to go. And it sounds like this walkabout, what you're doing is, whether it's pain focused or not, it's emotional based. It's putting an emotion onto something you understand that needs to change in order for, to catalyst, to become a catalyst for you to make the decision in the direction that you want to go to. And so, did did you learn about these walkabouts? Or did you just figure out, let's just do this for people? Or how did this walkabout idea come about?
Yeah, I think there's something innate in a lot of people that are trying to change their path. And
Hmm.
I can innately recognize other people who have gone through it.
Yeah.
And you start having conversations and you really ultimately it boiled down to, I had this experience. I started having conversations with other people who clearly had the similar mindset or
Yeah.
experience, and then I started to it always happened around nature. It always happened when they were thinking about who they were and why they did what they did. And
Yeah.
for me, I love looking at processes and kind of getting down to the nuts and bolt of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried it. I was sitting at the riverside with a group of people, and we were kind of talking existentially, and like, I'm very passionate about what I do and why I do it and what I'm trying to solve. And like,
Mm-hmm.
well, how did you do that? I was like, well, let's try this. Let's bring you down into the now, into the moment. And it's been very effective tool for refocusing individuals on why they're doing what they're doing. It essentially is a walkabout compressed down into a few moments.
Got it. So restaurant business shut down. You pack up your Miata, you drive 22 hours north into Canada. You reach this mountain. You're like, forget this mountain. I'm going to walk all over you. You're going through these bushes. You're covered in mud. You walk over. It's black rock. Water's crashing all over. It's foggy. You decide, you know what, let's head back. And as you head back, everything kind of opens up. The sun shines on everything. You hear the birds chirping. And, you start realizing that it's not about the money. It's more about the passion. So what was the tangible next step that you took? Did you drive back home right after that? What was the next step for you that was like, okay, this is the next thing that I got to do?
So I meandered back, made my way back to Omaha, which is where we're at the time. And the key aspect there is that I think I understood at this point that if I wanted to make change, I needed to know how to do it, right? Mm-hmm. I needed to add depth. It was very broad. I knew a lot about a lot of things, but I hadn't really focused on a core thing of what I wanted to do. And so somewhere in there, before I went on my road trip, I was trying to get a job, right? I had experience, I had an MBA, and I couldn't meet this need. And it's where a lot of my passions are, because I believe education empowers you, and entrepreneur mindset sets you free to pursue your passion. And that, at that point, I went after a second master's in MIS, Managing Information Systems. I learned to code. I got some real actual tool sets that I could apply to make an impact and a change. And I tried a couple different iterations of the solution to the problem. I tried a web development company where I could hire people and have them work on the task, figure out how to be freelancers, and then kind of set them on their way. That's when I figured out that the education system wasn't really meeting the needs of small, medium businesses. And that's pretty rough when you consider they represent 98% of the global GDP, right? The majority of jobs exist in the small and medium businesses and not these large scale corporations.
Not to put anyone down, but I will interject to say that, like, I didn't know as a marketing major what a sales funnel was until after I graduated.
Right.
Oh,
so no, you're not alone. Like, it is literally the epitome of this country. There's education's theory, and theory is no good without practical application of that theory. I've said theory, and that was the core of what I was trying to solve. And in a way of how I was going to do it, that evolved into this platform that would do small scope jobs for employers that universities could oversee. Too much red tape. And then my wife got a job back in Tampa. That's kind of where we're from. Most of my family's there. And so we were able to move back down, and I was supposed to just finish my MIS degree and not do anything. And then I kind of jumped headlong into the entrepreneur community in Tampa Bay. I got incredibly involved in that, started doing hackathons, building hackathons, executing them. In 2017, I went on an event called Startup Bus, which is 3 days on a bus traveling across the country where you're launching a product, trying to get sales, and then you compete for 2 days in the destination city against the other 8, 9, 10 buses that have been doing the same thing for a week.
Awesome.
So it was just insane intensity level. From there, I launched a company called Course Align, which was an artificial intelligence company that what I found out really was there's this gap. The skill gap is what a lot of people call it, from what they're getting taught in education and what employers are needing. And the main problem is that they're using an old methodology that's not scalable in the university. And you have too many jobs from too many employers to get a really good sense of it. So using this machine learning algorithm, we could see in real time when employers were wanting and see whether or not the university was actually going to or was actually servicing that need in their education to be this
Interesting.
translator for the
Yeah.
school. It was incredible. I spent a year traveling all across the country. I conducted the 2018 Startup Bus route
Nice.
and had, I've pitched in front of 25,000 people. I've done pitches in Atlanta and Silicon Valley and
Uh-huh.
all over trying to get investors. And I really wanted Florida to have a big win, but there's still a really early investment community here. I
Mm-hmm.
had an investor take me from Tampa down to West Palm and then didn't invest in what we were doing.
Yeah.
That kind of burnt a lot of my energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have your
Mm-hmm.
baby, you put all this energy, all this
Yep.
work,
Yep.
and you're getting cool feedback. We were like right at the point, like we finished building the product. We had customers lined up. And we're like, yes, this is awesome. And somebody goes, you know what? All that time you spent last week, we're just not interested, even though
Nope.
we like used up all your energy to get you down here and do all that stuff.
Yeah. It's
I was
really
like,
interesting when you have
man,
that, when you need to have that conversation with yourself where it's like, this is my baby. I've put, all my blood, sweat, tears into this, and someone else says, no, thank you.
yeah.
You
You have to get used to that as an
Oh,
entrepreneur, right? You have
absolutely.
to be very
Absolutely,
comfortable
man.
with somebody telling you, no, this won't work, whatever. What really did me in was at the same time my twins were born.
Okay.
So I had two brand new babies
Yeah.
and was basically starting over in a raising set, which if you're familiar with fundraising, it's 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. Right. And you got to be pretty lucky. So I didn't want to go down that path of uncertainty,
Mm-hmm.
energy and effort without knowing that there was going to be something at the end of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Two new babies at home. I ended up taking about 8 months off and just spent time with my family, which
Wow.
I will forever be thankful for.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was what's next, right? I need
Mm.
a job. I need to make money. How am I going to translate these skills into something that's practical and applicable? And are you familiar with Startup Week?
Yeah. In Tampa Bay. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was the ed tech track captain,
Oh,
and I
okay.
saw this
Okay.
as a huge opportunity for me to network and
Nice.
leverage the community that I had been
Oh.
building for many, many years. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a very much of a relationship mindset. You build relationships, you don't ask for anything, you give value. And at the end of the day, if you really need something, they're there
Mm-hmm.
to support you.
Yeah.
And when I came up to Tampa, I told everybody like, hey, look, I need your help. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm trying to do. I need a job, something. And I really want to do entrepreneurial education if I can. So I had a
Mm.
couple of offers, and then I had two in the entrepreneur education space, and I was like, "This is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. This
Yeah.
is what I'm passionate about. This is what I care about."
Mm.
And ended up going with the Lakeland job for Catapult Lakeland.
Okay.
If you're not familiar, which I was not, they're a co-working incubator, which is a space where you get to work on what you're doing, but they also provide educational entrepreneur education around that, support that. They're a little bit
Okay.
pickier about who is able to work in the space because they want you to be growth minded and collaborative focused.
Got it. So there's like an
They don't want you to
application
just come.
phase.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
an
They filter
interview,
everyone out. Yeah.
right?
Okay.
They do. They don't. You can't just come in and be like this thing floating in the
Yeah.
sidewalk.
Not
We want
everybody
you to
can
be
get in.
engaged.
That's good. No, that's good because then you build the right community, right? And that's
Right.
that's key in making sure, especially in an incubator, you got to have the right people with the right mindset around you in order to actually make an impact in the business. So
Absolutely.
absolutely.
And so for me, it was an incredible opportunity to do something that I loved about.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able in 6 months to bring Techstars Startup Weekend, Startup Grind, and 1 Million Cups, which is incredible to bring 3 international programs to this small community.
So
And
you're
then
responsible for bringing 1 million cups to Tampa?
Or Lakeland.
Oh, Lakeland. Okay. I was like, because I'd been to a couple of those 1 million cup meetings. I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. But if you brought that to Lakeland, that's an amazing. That's awesome. I mean, I'm not familiar with the other two, but 1 million cups. I mean, I've been to a couple of those events, and it's really interesting to see that entire experience. Live. It's pretty cool.
So I've part of pitching, right, is getting
Yeah.
out and presenting what you're doing, and so as entrepreneurs, I presented at 15 different 1 million cups,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew I knew the power of what this community had to offer.
Yeah.
And it's a big part of really just getting those wheels started, changing the culture of what it means to be an entrepreneur in a community and what it means to be an entrepreneurial community. That
Yeah.
whether you're an entrepreneur or not, you can provide real value to the people that are out there trying to make it, trying to do this next
Mhm.
thing that exists. And so it's a big piece in my mind of that puzzle. Startup Grind
Mhm.
is a fireside chat with an experienced entrepreneur. So it allows us
Mhm.
to pull out the knowledge and experience of what they have done over the years. To give you
Nice.
an example, our first one, we had Tim Cox. He's the director of marketing, creative services, for Publix.
Okay.
He started with 5 people 38 years ago and grew it
Mhm.
to over 100 people now. And
Wow.
through all the transformations of what Publix has gone through throughout the years. So it's
Mm.
incredible knowledge and experience we were able to pull out, and the community was able to get asked questions and really engage in what he had learned throughout the years.
Wow.
And then for us, the last thing is Techstar Startup Weekend that we've been able to launch so far. That's 54 hours where you take an idea from an idea to a business.
Wow.
Right? You really get to taste what it means to be an entrepreneur, to bring that. We killed it. We had higher average attendees for our first event than the
Yeah.
national average. We beat the national score, and then ended up actually talking to Inc. magazine about what we were able to create in that
Wow. That's really
environment.
cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And
We're
I
at a
love what you're doing, because I
mind
think that,
blowing.
yeah, it's awesome. And I think that the biggest, like, for me, the mind blowing fact is that, like, you know, I'm assuming these are events where, people can just show up. Like, you don't need to have a business to attend or to be a part of it, right?
Right. That's the
Right.
whole point.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there's so many people out there. Like, you're not alone in wanting to start a business. And I find that many entrepreneurs get stuck behind the laptop and the four walls. And what ends up happening is that when you don't have perspective over time, it's very easy to go down some very dark rabbit holes. And you really think that, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. But if you go to events like this, like, you meet other people, that can give you the next idea, can give you a brand new perspective. You can see that you're not alone. And I think that just speaks volumes in terms of the impact that you're actually making. Because I'm pretty sure there's some people in there that last week were, I can't do this anymore. They went to one event and they're like, okay, you know what? Never mind. I can totally rock this out. Watch me.
Right. That's the whole value of what this community brings.
Yeah.
We're incredibly lucky. We've been doing this for about 6 years. I've only been here for about 6 months,
Hmm.
but they are moving into a 38,000 square foot building,
It's, wow.
right? 9,000 square foot makerspace,
Yeah.
metal shop, wood shop, CNC printer, laser cutters, 3D printers, sewing machines,
Wow.
a 6,000 square foot commercial kitchen with a specialty room. So if you want to do gluten-free or allergy stuff, you can do it off to the side. And then a food service off of one of our conference rooms. So we can do pop-up restaurants, right?
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's
And then
awesome, man.
2 stories of co-working space, meeting rooms, conference rooms, 250 person meeting rooms. You've got a 4-person podcasting room open to the public,
Yeah.
green screen with infinity wall. Like, the potential of what this does for the Central Florida region
I
is
love it.
mind-boggling.
I love it. I mean, if they have showers in a gym, that I'm living in, you know.
Right?
I'm
Just pull
literally
your
I'm
RVs
looking
up,
for,
plug it in, you're good to
yeah,
go.
I'm looking for a co-working space that has showers and a gym, and they're nationwide. If I can have that, I'm sold. Done.
Right? Absolutely.
Oh man. Okay. And so, for you, right? Like, obviously it comes down to the education and the entrepreneurship that really motivates you. But it sounds like there's a recurring theme between, like, what's next, right? Like, what's the next idea? What's the next move? What do you think is driving that what's next? Like, what is really motivating you? What is your why? For lack of a better example, that is causing you to
Yeah.
say, what's the next move? How can I make more of an impact?
I think a lot of it goes back to kind of my ethos and my motto. Um, Persistent passion, intentional serendipity. Right? You
Can you
can
repeat that one more
love,
time? Because
yep,
I think the listeners might have missed that.
no worries. In persistent passion,
Mm-hmm.
intentional serendipity.
Mm.
You can love your football team. You can even sit down every Sunday and watch the game, right?
Yep.
But it's not until you take that passion and you put it into the world, you go to the games, you tweet at the players, you engage the world, that the world responds through serendipitous experiences where you get to meet the players, to go to the dugout, you get to get on the field. That is what it is all about. Finding the core of who you are, believing in it, being persistent and intentional in what you're trying to do. And that's when the world starts replying. I play this little game, or used to anyways, where I follow the bouncy ball, right? This happened, so then this happened, so then that happened. I gave up on that the moment I moved to Tampa and went to a 1 million cups where I saw someone to present that presents one time that set me down this path of really high level entrepreneurship and engaging in what I'm passionate. If we follow that ball back, I wasn't supposed to even be in Tampa, much less be at an event because I was still finishing my second master's. And then the path leads all the way back to that mountaintop. But it's so many bouncy balls that it's hard to follow all those movements. And then you start trying to count like what it took for that other person to get there to meet you up, and your mind just explodes. So I sum it up to serendipity.
I love it. I love it. And it's so true. I mean, I think a lot of times we fall into that habit of like mapping out goals and then sticking to a really hard set path to achieve the goal. But in reality, there's more than one way to achieve a goal. And when you look back at like everything you have accomplished, I'm pretty sure you surprise yourself every single time on how those things actually ended up working themselves out.
It's crazy.
You know?
I mean, life's messy. It's not going to end up like you imagine it. So just get in there and start messing with it with your hands. Because then if you stare at your goal, right? I love goal boards, but you have to take steps towards achieving what you're trying to do. Look at where you're headed, work it backwards, and break it down into small chunks, right? How do you move a mountain? One shovel scoop at a time. Really get in there and understand what you're trying to achieve. And a lot of that's what I bring to the Lakeland community is, hey, we would love to have 1 billion startups come out of here, but first we need one, right? And we need to get them the experience, the knowledge, and the community supporting them with what they're trying to do. And it's been incredible because we're not just one, we're at 160 members, right? We've had explosive growth because it multiplies by itself.
That's awesome.
Really have to embrace the ripples.
I like
you can't make an impact. You have to make an impact that causes additional ripples throughout the community.
That's a tweetable.
Is how you make change.
That is a tweetable, embrace the ripples. Dude, my mind is blown. Robert, thank you so much, man. Before we end here, let the people know where they can get in contact with you. Let them know what's going on in your world. How can we get in touch with you, man?
Absolutely. So you can definitely email me at robert@catapultlakeland.com. I would love to have a conversation with you, but you can also follow my public figure page on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as Startup Santa, and then LinkedIn, of course, hit me up there. We can grow your network together.
All right. And for everyone who's listening, I'll make sure to include all those links in the show notes for this episode on the website. Thank you so much, Robert. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Oscar. You have a wonderful day.
You as well. Thanks.